Something crazy is happening behind the scenes, and it probably won't be a surprise to you. But everything that appears to be one way on the outside is not that way on the inside. And by that I mean, NBC looks like they're in bed with the DNC. This story is crazy, and it involves one journalist who was told by another journalist to hold a story that he got a scoop on, so that the DNC could call around to more people they wanted to call around to before it was announced where the first Democratic debate would take place, and that's going to be in Florida. So Yasher Ali was the journalist who got the scoop and who was pressured by an NBC journalist to hold it. That's crazy. It's completely unethical, and it gets even worse. Let's get into it. So Yasher Ali on Twitter, I think he's a pretty good journalist. He writes for the New York Magazine. He's a HuffPo contributor. He's very, very active on Twitter. So he says, yesterday I received a call from Dafna Linzer, who serves as managing editor of NBC, MSNBC Politics. Dafna's conduct during the call was highly inappropriate and unethical. So what was the purpose of her call? She called me to bully me on behalf of the DNC. And the DNC already seems like bullies. I'm sure you've heard of the arm of the DNC called the DCCC, who has said that they will not support any candidate in the primaries, not presidential primaries, but for the House and the Senate. They won't support any runs against incumbents who are likely to win. So if old guy Bob is over here and he's a Democrat, he's been in there forever, and young girl Susie, who's fired up, knows her stuff, and she wants to primary him, she can't if she wants the DCCC's support. She has to primary someone who is not likely to win, which is ridiculous. And unfortunately, the Justice Democrats and AOC have seemed to okay that. They've seemed to have decided to go along with that, which is highly disappointing. I used to do a lot of writing for Justice Democrats, and I think their mission was always good and important, but I am highly, highly against this move. And I hope they don't continue to fall down the rabbit hole of DNC belonging. Let's get back to Yasher. He says, Dafna, who oversees the political coverage for NBC and MSNBC, was calling to bully me into delaying the publication of an innocuous scoop, and at no point did she advocate for her network. It was only about the DNC. Here's how all this started. Yesterday morning, I received a tip from a trusted source. The source told me the DNC would be announcing the dates of the first 2020 primary debates later that day. The source gave me the dates they would be announcing, June 26th and June 27th. At first I thought it was just a fun tidbit that I could tweet out, but after I called several presidential campaign staffers, I learned that all the Dem campaigns were desperate to learn what the dates were going to be. I decided to post the scoop as an item in my newsletter. This wasn't a huge scoop, but it was a decent one, so I quickly called the DNC to fact-check the tip as I was running out of time. The dates would be announced on MSNBC in the 4 p.m. hour. It's important to note that almost all of my communication with the DNC was off record, so I won't share most of what was said, but can tell you it's pretty run-of-the-mill stuff. I asked the DNC if my tip was accurate, and they asked if they could call me back in 10 minutes. A few minutes later, they called back, and asked if I could delay posting my scoop. For another hour so they could go through their important notification calls to the state parties. I told them I couldn't wait as the news would leak and leave me without a story. That's all I can say about the call. 2 minutes later, I received a call from Dafna. I have never spoken to Dafna by phone. A couple years ago, she reached out to me to see if I wanted to have coffee and talk about working at NBC News, but I declined as I was actively investigating NBC matters and thought it would be strange if I discussed a job. So when I see Dafna calling, I assume she would ask me to consider delaying my post so that MSNBC could announce it first. Given that this was an innocuous scoop and not some investigative story, I wouldn't have lost sleep if I had delayed. But that's not why she was calling. And why do you think she was calling, friends? After exchanging pleasantries, Dafna told me that she received a call from the DNC and was told I had a story. Now, it's not strange that the DNC called her. They were coordinating an announcement. What was strange was that she was calling me and taking a menacing tone. She asked if I could hold the story, and I said I couldn't. But she was agitated and asked why not. I said I'm not going to lose a scoop. Then she got angrier and said, "Why not? It's not a big deal. Let them make a few phone calls." My jaw dropped. I realized that Dafna Linzer, the head of all political coverage for NBC News and MSNBC, wasn't calling to advocate for her network. She was calling to advocate the DNC's position. She wanted me to wait so they could call state party leaders. I thought to myself, this is how people think it works. It's not, but Dafna was doing it. She kept pressing me. Now I acknowledged, for stuff that isn't about serious investigative reporting, there's no problem holding something. But I knew once others got the call, I would lose a scoop. Dafna reminded me she was a national security reporter at WAPO for 10 years and that they would hold stuff all the time. Note, so people wouldn't get killed. Why can't you just wait, let them make their calls, then you'll be the first to put it into print, she said. I couldn't believe what she was saying. Again, it was fine for me to print the story an hour later, beat her own network by 3 hours. She just wanted me to let the DNC inform state party leaders. Why the hell did she care? I kept telling Dafna no, that I wasn't waiting, and she kept getting more frustrated. She was exasperated. She didn't understand why I couldn't wait for the DNC to make their state notification calls. I was so surprised that she was talking this way with a total stranger. The head of the political division was trying to bully me at the behest of the DNC over a dumb scoop, even though they may not have asked her to. 2/3 of the way into the conversation, Dafna started a sentence with, "This is off the record." She hadn't said it at the beginning of our conversation, and most important, at no point did I agree when she said off record to keep it off record. I'm not one of those gotcha reporters. I think it's bad for sourcing relationships to make people feel like they constantly have to say off record. But Dafna isn't a source, and she was calling to intimidate me, so she doesn't get the benefit. She said off record one more time later in the call, and again I just let her keep talking. I did not agree to anything. I then told her I had to go talk to my editor, and she got even more frustrated and said, "No, I want to talk to you about this." I said, "No, I want to go talk to my editor." Then she sent me over the edge and said, "What's your editor's name? I want to talk to them." She was trying to intimidate me on behalf of the DNC. I ended the call. After the call with Dafna, I published the stupid scoop. Then I did a gut check, and over the next 2 hours, I called 10 experienced, prominent reporters and told them the story. They were all stunned by what Dafna did and encouraged me to share it publicly. I'm not naive to the fact that this incident is going to be twisted by some with an agenda to discredit the media and say they collude with political parties. But I think it is more important to expose bad behavior than keep it under wraps. What Dafna did was unethical. There are plenty of times reporters will introduce people in politics to other reporters or TV people. I have done it many times. That is advocating for more coverage, not less. Dafna was advocating for me to not do something on behalf of a political party. What I can't figure out, and no one else I spoke to could understand, why open yourself up to this for a stupid story? How is this worth it? End. Oh, Dafna. Dafna, what have you done? Not to make light of this story at all, and I think one point Yasher made was that this doesn't always happen, that this is not how it works. But that doesn't sound right at all, because there is such an intertwining of things like the DNC, the GOP, and the media that it's disturbing and disgusting. He's making the assumption that other people are as ethical as him, that other reporters are as ethical as he is, and that's certainly not the case. So this is how it works often, and it's unfortunate that he should be intimidated by the head of the political division for MSNBC and NBC over something like this. It's just dates. It's just dates of debates. I mean, it's not, I don't know, a life-saving medical breakthrough or something like that. All it is dates for the debates for the DNC again. So let's go ahead and read the Mediaite article about this. It's not unbelievable, but I feel like using that word anyway. It's unbelievable that Dafna would do this. Did she not think Yasher was going to come forward? That's nuts. Of course he would come forward with this. So the Mediaite article is titled, Journalist Yasher Ali Calls Out NBC Politics Editor. She Tried to Intimidate Me on Behalf of the DNC, by Caleb Akarma. In a lengthy Twitter thread, journalist Yasher Ali accused NBC News managing editor of politics, Dafna Linzer, of trying to bully him into delaying the publication of a story on the dates of the first Democratic primary debates in Miami. Yesterday, I received a call from Dafna Linzer, who serves as managing editor of NBC MSNBC Politics. Ali, a contributor for HuffPo and New York Magazine, tweeted Friday. Dafna's conduct during the call was highly inappropriate and unethical. So what was the purpose of her call? She called to bully me on behalf of the DNC, he alleged in a lengthy 20-part Twitter thread, which I've taken you through. In subsequent tweets, Ali explained that he received a tip about dates for the first Democratic debate to be hosted by NBC, which the network planned to announce on MSNBC later that day. Ali said he started making phone calls to confirm the information. After talking to the DNC, Ali received a call from Linzer, during which she tried to intimidate him into stalling the story at the behest of the DNC. He claimed, "It's not strange that the DNC called her. They were coordinating an announcement. What was strange was that she was calling me and taking a menacing tone. She asked if I could hold the story, and I said I couldn't. She was agitated. Why not? I said I'm not going to lose a scoop. Then she got angrier and said, why not? It's not a big deal. Let them make a few phone calls. My jaw dropped." Ali further noted that Linzer wasn't trying to pause his scoop to allow for her network to make the official announcement, but instead just asked him to wait until the DNC could make their calls to the candidates, informing them of the dates. Near the end of the call, Ali purported that Linzer tried to make the conversation off the record. She hadn't said it at the beginning of our conversation, and most important, at no point did I agree when she said off record to keep it off record, he wrote. He added that he ended the conversation after Linzer asked to speak to his editor. The journalist who reported on NBC's controversial decision to kill the Harvey Weinstein sexual misconduct story asked that this incident not be twisted by some with an agenda to discredit the media and say they collude with political parties. I think it's more important to expose bad behavior than keep it under wraps, he said. What Dafna did was unethical. Mediaite reached out to NBC News and will update this story if they issue a response. So again, we have the same old stuff. It's shocking it's not shocking that this was done. It's shocking that we're getting to see it. So Yasher is being ethical and telling us what happened. And that's the shocking part, that we get to peek behind the curtain and see what's going on with these unethical corporate outlets and unethical corporate Democrats. So let's talk about this a little bit more. It's unsurprising that Dafna hasn't come forward and talked about this yet. She obviously did the wrong thing. I don't know why she thought, why on earth would Yasher not come forward with this information? Why would he not tell his audience what just happened? Why was she so desperate, like Yasher asked? Why was she so desperate for him to not tweet out the date? It truly doesn't make sense. You would think she would save her fire for some bigger news, some more important news. And the interesting question is, did the DNC ask her to do this, or did she do it on her own? Like, where was she receiving pressure from? Because I do believe that she was receiving pressure from somewhere. Maybe it was pressure from her bosses. Maybe it was pressure from the DNC. Maybe there's something else going on that we don't know yet. Some kind of something. I don't want to speculate too much because I could say a whole lot. It might not be true. Just as part of speculation, but there are definitely interesting questions here. And of course, other journalists have tried to reach out to Dafna Linzer, and here is the response that journalist Brian Stelter got. NBC PR just got back to me. They and Linzer have no comment on this. So now, why won't they comment? You would think that they would have some boilerplate answer ready to go. They should comment on this. They have to eventually. They can't just let it go. It's truly, truly nuts. So hopefully we'll find an answer to the story or get some kind of follow-up. Hopefully Dafna, wherever she is, will come forward and say what happened. NBC PR, tell us what happened. It's to be expected, and there's a lot more stories like this. There's a lot more where that came from.